Okay, we are recording, and again, welcome to the webinar for the request for applications on the TANF short-term rapid rehousing and homeless prevention funding. This is a first round of two that we plan to do here this year. This first round is limited to just organizations that receive ESG funds, and that can be either through IHCDA here, you're working with me on that, or through your entitlement city. And we will get rolling here. Okay, our agenda for today, I'm going to go over the timeline, give you some updates there, hit on the purpose of this funding, some eligibility requirements for you as the applicant, that client eligibility, eligible expenses that you can use these funds on, a couple of requirements. We'll go over the reporting needs, and I've got some screenshots where we'll walk through the application, and I'll kind of tell you what we're wanting to see in certain areas. And letting some more folks in here, I apologize. And then we'll have some time for question and answer. And as I said, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to throw those in chat. And I might not get to it right away, but I do have a break about halfway through. And I can look at chat at that point and hopefully answer any questions that you've got there. So this funding was announced and communicated and was opened on the 17th of April. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at the application and go through the RFA document. We're at 5/8 right now, holding the webinar. The application portal will close on May 20th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to have your applications in by that time. We'll not be able to accept any late applications. My timeline's gotten pushed a bit further than I would like. I will be presenting funding recommendations to the IHCDA board on June 27th, and hope to quickly communicate that information to you all, so that you know what funding you have going forward. And then you will see the program year does start June 1. I recognize you're not getting notified until June 28th that you've received the funds. But if in the case that you are serving clients that are eligible for this funding in June, you would be able to go back and claim any June expenses. Program year would run June 1st to June 1st of 24 to May 30th of 25. The first monthly claim would be due on July 30th, with the final claim being due June 30th of 25. And I'll go ahead and answer this question. I do have a question in the chat. Are indirect costs allowable? They are, as long as you've got that indirect cost calculation. And if that's not something that we have on file from you now, that would need to be on file with us with your first claim, just to show how you've arrived at that indirect cost amount. Okay, back to our presentation. The purpose of this funding is really to help young parents get into housing. This is in the form of temporary assistance for needy families funds, with the focus on short-term rapid rehousing and homeless prevention. TANF has certain statutory purposes, and this funding will meet purpose number 1, which is to assist needy families so that children may be cared for in their own homes or in the homes of relatives. I keep saying mothers with children, but this program is open to grandparents and other caregivers as well. So you as the potential subrecipient would provide housing location stabilization services, And again, this round is limited to organizations that currently receive ESG funding, either from IHCDA or from an entitlement city. You will see another round come open later this summer that is open to all nonprofits. So we will see how that goes. So those will be folks that are new to ESG funding. So there'll be a little bit of a more of a learning curve there. So we were holding them in a different round. And potentially, if you are not awarded funding in this round, there is the potential that you could apply and be awarded in the open. Again, the due date for applications is 5 p.m. on May 20th. The application is on SurveyMonkey and must be submitted through there. PDF file of the application is available. Thanks for the folks that reached out and said, "Hey, we can't go through the rest of the application because it's got required fields." So appreciate that, and I have shared that document. It's in the chat if you'd like to download it from here, or you can reach out to me and I can get that to you in email. The overall award amount for this round, just this closed ESG round, is a little over $5 million. As you saw in the RFA, we expect requests in the range of 100,000 to 400,000 for the purposes of just ease on our side of things and on our claims team. We do plan to make large awards. You know, but if your program is at the size that you really couldn't take on $100,000 for a year of this programming, you are welcome to submit requests for lower than that. Just wanted to give you all an idea of kind of what we were looking at there. And be sure that the amount you're requesting is realistic and reasonable for the spending period. And really, I'll tell you, our goal is that we can blow through this money, because there might be the opportunity to go back to FSSA and say, hey, we put these funds to good use. We're getting folks housed. We're keeping folks housed. We can use some more money to continue this good work. So really want to get all the funding expensed by the end of the program, so that we can pull all that down from FSSA. And again, if we get done early, there is the opportunity for us to go back to them for to request more funds. We'll go over some applicant eligibility here. So to be eligible to receive this funding, organizations must be an active 501c3 nonprofit or a 501c nonprofit, not be debarred or suspended from receiving federal funds. You must have a unique entity ID through sam.gov, and that must be active. With you all receiving ESG funds, you should have that active registration there. Again, current recipient of ESG. You must not have any unresolved findings with IHCDA, your entitlement city, or HUD, and not have had any funds recaptured due to non-compliance. You cannot include mandatory services for clients as a requirement for assistance. This is, everything we do at IHCDA, we have that housing first approach. So we want to get folks housed. If they want to access those further services, that's great. We're there for them, but it can't be a requirement. We do want you to have internet access with regular availability of email. The regs that all this information comes from is kind of showing its age, as most of us have that easily, but we do want to be able to communicate with you. You do have to have kind of a standard on your your accounting system, excuse me, that you have a general ledger, a cash receipts or deposits received, book of account, a cash disbursements or check register in your books of account, and fixed assets. That's kind of the bare minimum that we would expect to see in your accounting system. Some requirements kind of after the funding is awarded, we will require you to participate in the 2025 point in time count and the housing inventory count. Those will take place in around late January and go on for a couple months there with our HMIS team. You'll be entering all HMIS required data for homeless clients into Client Track. If you are a Marion County applicant, we have had conversations with CHIP, and we will be getting into some data sharing. They're happy to set up your projects for this. So no worries there. You're not going to have to do duplicate databases. We'll make sure that we make that smooth on the back end here. You must attend all award trainings. We will hold another webinar once the awards are made to go over maybe some more details on the claims process, any updated requirements or needs that we have, and then you'd be able to ask some questions as we really get to moving on the program. You need to comply with the requirements of HUD's Equal Access Rule. We've got a training on that coming up, I believe, next week. So hopefully all of you are registered for that. Yes, next Wednesday on the 15th, we have that HUD Equal Access Rule training. You will need to ensure all clients served with this funding meet the appropriate HUD category definition of homelessness, and that they meet TANF's eligibility requirements, kind of a two-step check there. Organizations will also be encouraged to participate in the regional planning council meetings to coordinate with others in their area that are targeting homeless folks with services. And we also encourage, I think it's a best practice to the furthest extent possible, to have board representation of people with lived experience, lived expertise. I learned early in my career, the best way to, well, you can really go down a wrong path if you don't have the folks that you're planning to serve around that table with you, helping to craft the program. So it's something that we encourage. My favorite slide of the deck here, match. You all are used to that 100% match requirement for ESG. There is no local match required for this funding. So I know if I had the mics unmuted, I'm sure I would hear some hoorays. I've got a yay in the chat, so that's great. You know, these are funds that you're not going to have to scurry to find another matching source for. The other great news, this funding can be used as match for Emergency Solutions program. So that 100% match that you always need to show evidence of and put towards your ESG program, this can be used as match for that. So there'll be some caveats, and we can get into that once we have that next webinar. But that is the good news on match. So, and I do want to apologize that the RFA that we released was a bit confusing, and I got some questions on it. In retrospect, I would have done it a little differently to make it a little more clear. But we have two types of assistance that you can apply to receive and administer to folks. That's short-term rapid rehousing. That type is meant to quickly move clients from homeless to housed. To be eligible for that funding, your clients must meet Category 1 or Category 4 of HUD's homeless definition. And we do want to see those clients come from your region's coordinated entry system. If there are issues with that, or if you don't believe that's going to work for some reason, reach out to me and let me know what your concerns are there, and we can discuss that further. The other type of assistance is short-term homeless prevention. And that type of funding is meant to keep clients that are imminently at risk of becoming homeless in their home. I guess I left off the end of that sentence there. To be eligible for this type of funding, your clients must meet Category 2 or 4 of HUD's homeless definition. As you can see, there are 4 crosses over between the two types. We'll talk a little bit more about this. So short-term rapid rehousing, again, you're serving category 1, and that's the literally homeless category. So to meet this definition for eligibility, an individual or family who lacks the definition is, this is an individual or family who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, meaning that their primary nighttime residence is a public or private space not meant for human habitation, is living in a publicly or privately operated shelter. Those are, our normal ESG shelters that your clients will be eligible for this short-term rapid rehousing as long as they meet the TANF guidelines. And the other caveat here is if they're exiting an institution, whether that be a jail stint or a medical facility where they've resided for 90 days or less, and they met those other definitions prior to going into that institution. So this is the definition of folks that would be eligible for rapid rehousing. For homeless prevention, as I said, that serves category 2 and 4, which I'll go over 4 here in a moment, of HUD's homeless definition. Those are folks that are at imminent risk of homelessness. That's an individual or family who will imminently lose their primary nighttime residence, and that they're looking to, that they've got notice that will be lost within 14 days of their application to you for assistance. No subsequent residence is identified. They've kind of ran through their list of networks that they might be able to stay with or crash on the couch, and that they lack the other resources to kind of solve this crisis on their own. So these are the folks that could receive homeless prevention assistance. And you'll see in a bit that the eligible expenses are the same for both of these categories. The difference comes in with who you're serving. So are they literally homeless? That's who you'd want to get into rapid rehousing. Are they imminently at risk of losing the housing that they're in? That's when you can get them into prevention. Then we have the cross-cutting category, category 4. So these are folks that are fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence. They have no other residence, and they lack the resources or support networks to obtain other permanent housing. This category, I would see this falling probably more in rapid rehousing, just based on kind of where they would be staying. But these folks would also be eligible for homeless prevention dollars if that situation made sense. Because if they are fleeing, typically they'd be going to a new residence. But hey, I'm sure there are a couple of specific circumstances where this might be a good fit for homeless prevention. So we've looked at, does our client meet HUD's homeless category definitions to be qualified? Again, that's category 1, 2, or 4. Now we've got to check to see if that client meets TANF eligibility. So are they a U.S. citizen or legal U.S. resident residing in Indiana? Here's where a little difference pops up between HUD's funding and this funding. For HUD's COC funding and ESG funding, they actually don't require you to check citizenship. For TANF, funding, you will have to check citizenship status. Eligible households could include parents, grandparents, or caregivers to children under the age of 18. If that child is still a full-time student, that age goes up to 19. Or it can include an expectant parent, or be a dependent child in the household of a parent or guardian who meets the criteria. We do have a income threshold to be eligible. This household would have to have income at or below 250% of the federal poverty line. And you'd be looking at the last 30 days of income for that determination. We've got a couple questions here that I'll go ahead and handle. Yes, these slides will be shared afterwards, as well as the recording. And then we've got a question here. Hopefully I can answer this. If a family is in arrears on their rent or utilities and cannot get into a unit unless those are paid off, which category is that? So that would be if they're trying to get into a new unit, that would be rapid rehousing. And you can, as you'll see, eligible expenses include arrears payments if that's needed to either keep the first person housed or to obtain new housing. Okay, and here are those eligible expenses I mentioned. And I looked back at the RFA earlier this week and noticed that I had some errors into this section, so do pay attention here. Eligible expenses under financial assistance, security deposits. So these funds can pay for a security deposit that is equal to no more than 2 months of rent. The idea there is we don't have a first line or a line for first month's rent. So that's kind of included in that 2-month bit there. Last month's rent is eligible if it's necessary to obtain housing for a participant. Typically that would be done along with security deposit. Utility deposits are eligible. This has to be a standard deposit that is required for all customers, or a normal deposit that is required for customers at whatever credit level. I know some folks, depending on their credit score, might have to pay a larger deposit. It just can't be a deposit that's targeting, or an amount that's targeting someone that isn't applied to others. But that is an allowed expense. Utility payments. So TANF can pay for up to 4 months of utility payments per program participant per service. A partial payment counts as a month. The person that is receiving the assistance, someone in the household, it has to be in their name. And the eligible services are gas, electric, water, and sewage. Utility arrears is an eligible expense. Can pay for utility arrears consisting of a one-time payment that equals no more than 4 months of service. So really everything you're looking at here, and this is where we differ from the RFA that got published, is we have a 4-month cap on assistance. That's why we're looking at short term with both of these assistance types. So just keep that in mind with arrears. You could pay 2 months of arrears and a current and the next one to make that 4. Same with rent and rent arrears. You just can't do more than 4 months of assistance for any of these types. And again, rent and utilities need to be in the name of the recipient receiving the funds or someone in their household. So I'm going to hit these I'm going to go back to these 2 slides. What do we don't see? How are you getting paid? How are we paying for the people that are doing the work of assisting these folks? Unfortunately, that is not an eligible expense under TANF. We can't pay for staffing under those direct services, but we will have 10% of your overall award will be in an admin line, and that's where you can kind of cover some of your staff time. That could be for salaries, wages related to staff engaged in direct service or program administration. So it's a bit more open than the admin line might typically be looked at through ESG. Typically, we want you to put those staff salary dollars kind of in one of those services. For this, you'll be capturing that in admin, if that is your desire. Again, you'll have 10% of your award going to this. Other things that can be covered with the administrative line are the other eligible ESG admin expenses. So rent or purchase of equipment, there's some caveats there. Let's talk if you're wanting to buy a large piece of equipment. Insurance, utilities, office supplies, rental and maintenance of the office space, some of those typical things. The admin line would be that's where you'd be capturing that indirect costs, so that you'd be going into that 10%. That wouldn't be an additional. The other 90% of your award has to be in those direct client assistance payments. So again, the limits on assistance, again, 4 months. And that can be in arrears or future payments or a combination of both. This next bullet, I'm going to have to get a little bit more info on. This is a TANF rule that households cannot receive more than the equivalent of 24 months of TANF assistance in 3 years from any program. I've got a message in to double check with FSSA on that, are you responsible for tracking that? Because we're not going to really know beyond asking the client if they received TANF in the past, kind of how much eligibility they have. So there'll be more information on that as we go along. And to answer a question in the chat, yes, this funding does not cover any of that staff time other than the 10%. There are some options with utilizing an ESG award. So if you receive ESG in this next program year and want to claim some of that staff time for maybe housing, counseling, some of those relocation assistance, those type of things, that is something that you could technically pay for that side of it from your ESG award and have the direct assistance for that household coming from TANF. So if that 10% is scaring you off, there are some other ways that we can look at that. We will want you to use the income certification form to determine any costs that client would need to pay along with your assistance for the rent or utilities. So based on their income, maybe they get full assistance or they might have to pay a part of that. Households are expected to comply with their lease and meet with you to at least one time a month while they're in the program receiving that direct assistance. So this is going to cost some of your staff time to meet with these clients to work on their plans on what happens after this assistance runs out and kind of build up that capacity. This little bit is straight from our TANF MOU. Households who do not meet expectations of you or their lease requirement may be subject to removal from the program. Won't even talk about the rest of that because we're not going to run into that, right? For reporting, I think this will be, I think we're going to be able to work this out to where it's a pretty easy lift for you all. You'll be needing to get everything into HMIS as you go along in serving your clients. And then we would work, we would set up that project for the TANF short-term assistance. And then we would just have you pull a report each month and submit that with your claims. And we would be then gathering all of those documents and submitting that to FSSA as a whole for us to get our reimbursement. So this all would be passed along to them. The report would include a unique identifier. Do not use PPI or PII. No personal identification can be in there. I should have put what those two terms mean, so I could have said it, but nothing that can identify that client should be on the spreadsheet to someone that's not in the database. We would also need that service date, a brief service description, the service payment amount, and any program components that that client is participating in. Because again, the FSSA wants to see that these clients are receiving some coaching, some training, some support, even if they don't want to pay you for it. So again, this is where you could bring in some ESG funds to pay for your staff time to put on these courses and classes, and then use the TANF funds for that direct assistance. Okay, so I'm going to take a break here and see if there's any other questions. I think I've been answering all of them that we've received so far as we've gone along. I'll give another second here if you'd like to put any questions in the chat. And then next up, we'll walk through the application. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. If any come to mind, be sure to pop them in there. So once you follow the link for the application, this is what your first question is going to look like. Like I said, nearly all the fields are required. So that's why I provided that PDF, because you're not going to be able to look through the pages. But we need your, yeah, we do have a question here. Rent 4 months or 4 months arrears, but not both. Correct. And same with utilities. It could be like 2 months arrears, 2 months forward, 3 arrears, 1 forward. It just can't add up to more than 4 months of assistance. But they can receive, that rent assistance, utility assistance. They can receive multiple types, just not more than 4 months of that. And then the income requirement, they can't be, they have to be at or below 250% of the federal poverty level. And then you would do an income certification form, just like you do with ESG clients, to determine rent amount and things like that, or assistance amount. So first question, you're just giving us your contact information. Let's see. And then your executive director contact information. This might be the same if it's different people. If you want a different contact than your director, please include that. Oh, goodness. I got Teresa asking if I skipped your question. No, you do not have. So Teresa asked, following the short-term 4-month period, do we have responsibility to what comes next for the client? No. You will, as you would with any client, you're going to work with them to try to find what is next, but you're not going to be on the hook for that. And unfortunately, this is one of the big unfortunates with this program. I've tried to get the answer I wanted to get, but I haven't gotten it. If you assist someone with this TANF funding, they are now not homeless. So ESG can't come after that 4-month period and then provide more months of assistance. They would have to, meet that homeless definition again to then receive ESG or COC funding. Hopefully that answered your question. And then I had another question about paying off arrears. Yes, you could pay off arrears with this funding and then move them on to a grant that could help them find a place. It just can't be another federal. It can't be ESG or COC. It can be it can be a local funding source, just anything that's non-federal in origination. Okay, back to our walkthrough here. We ask for your UEI. Again, if for some reason you don't have that, go to sam.gov, apply for that. I think it's a decently quick turnaround as long as you have all the paperwork that's required. But again, you should have an active ID just by being an ESG recipient. You're going to confirm that you have current status as a 501c. And then tell us about any unresolved findings that you have with IHCDA or an entitlement city. Hopefully the answer is no. If the answer is yes, explain so that we can look at that and maybe have a conversation there on if you're still eligible. We've got some board questions and financial management questions. Want to get an idea of your overall organization's annual budget. So this isn't just for a particular program, and I know this will, we've got some very large organizations, we've got some very small organizations, but this will help us give us an idea of kind of how much this funding is making up, compared to your overall annual budget. Give us an idea of how many folks are on your board and how frequently that board meets, and if it has a term limit policy. And then a question about lived experiences. This isn't a requirement, like I said, it's a recommended kind of best practice, but understand that, with certain boards and certain setups, it's just not feasible. And also, you want to pay folks for their expertise that they're bringing, and not a whole lot of funding sources will allows for that. So with those understandings, just something we want to see if it can be done. You're going to tell us if you have diversity and inclusion policies, how many years of experience you have in managing state and federal grants. This just kind of gives us an idea of how familiar you are with regulations and how all these processes work. Then you're going to check out of these four all the following books of accounts that are used by your organization's accounting system. Spoiler alert, these are all required. So if you're not using one of these, you will not be able to move on in the application. These are a requirement of ESG funding, so they are a requirement of the TANF funding. Then we ask if you have a software system where you're maintaining those records and if there's passwords in place. And then a question on bonding. If the folks that on your staff that handle the organization's funds, if they're bonded, that is an attachment that you will make at the end of the application, just showing that first page of your fiduciary bonding. Then we want a brief description of your organization, including programs and services. You don't have to go at length here, maybe a little more than your elevator pitch, kind of what you do, why you do it, and any particular programs or services that you offer that you want to call out there. And then want to know kind of where you've received your ESG funds from. I have a question here on if you currently administer a rental assistance program. I know that some of you just currently receive shelter funds or street outreach funds. and might just be getting into, you know, a rental assistance program with this here, which I do think it's a good foray into that. So if you do currently run a program, if you answer yes to that, just give us an idea of your current funding sources and kind of the size of your program, how many you have in it, and how many you'd be able to serve, given more funding. If you answered no to that question, that doesn't mean you're disqualified. Just want you to be thinking about your program plan and rollout timeline, given that, you know, this funding, you know, ends in the end of May of 2025. So we will want to see some plans that would have that rolling out pretty quickly. Let us know what cities or counties are in your proposed service area. Just list those there. Then we get to some kind of housing first questions. Does this project require clients to pass a background check screening prior to project entry? This would include, you know, sexual offender predator checks that might really need to be done. These questions don't disqualify you. Say if you do require an additional background check, it will result in fewer points, but you are still eligible. But we do want to see all of our programs really moving to that housing first model. Next question, do you require persons with specified criminal convictions to be excluded? Again, a caveat for registered sex offenders or requirements based on other funders. Number 25, do you require participants to be clean and sober before they enter your program? Do you serve families and individuals regardless of sexual orientation, family composition, or marital status? And are transgendered persons served accordingly? Saw that question. I will get to that once we get through these. Does this project expedite the admission process? Do clients receive assistance in getting their necessary documents together? Does the project actively participate in coordinated entry, including attending case conferencing? Do you provide program participants the opportunity to provide input onto the project? Again, having that person that we want to serve kind of helping to steer the ship with us. You have staff that are trained in clinical and non-clinical strategies to support participant engagement and harm reduction, you know, trauma-informed approaches, things like that. And has the organization attended or hosted any trainings on equity and inclusion? Not going to ask for any specifics there, just if you've, you know, attended, if your staff has attended at least one. Do you break out your outcomes for households or individuals based on demographics? Then we've got tried to make my HMIS colleagues happy here with the data quality question. You'll see some more of these sneak into the ESG application this year as well. Are you entering data in a timely manner? And they determined that, are you doing that within 5 days? That's kind of the metric there. And did you participate in the 2024 PIT count or HIT count? Then we get to the last section of the application. And you know, I do want to let you know that these will be scored kind of in a 3 tiers. So did you fully answer the question with plenty of detail and everything there? Did you answer the question, but kind of maybe leave some things you know, less specific? And did you kind of bare bones answer the question? So it'll be kind of 3 tiers that our internal reviewers look at here. So be sure to really detail out your responses here. So the first question is asking about the organization's experience and training with needs assessments, housing case management and placement services, kind of, what's your experience there? Next question asks about landlord engagement and what strategies the organization will use to connect with landlords. I mean, I hear you all the time when we're at conferences or on phone calls. This is getting harder and harder to do. So we're wanting to see kind of what your experience is, what your plan is. I wish I could whip the rental system into shape and get these prices down. That's for sure. But I can't do that, unfortunately, as much as I commiserate about it. We want to know what your experience is in serving pregnant women and families with children under 18. What's your specific experience serving the population that you'd be serving in this funding? Then we want to know how your program coordinates or integrates with other programs in your service area. I'm not trying to say anything about duplication of benefits. Folks that have worked with me for a while know that it's not, I don't believe in that. There are so many people to serve, and we're not even close to duplicating any benefits. But I do want to know how you're working with the other organizations in your region. And then we get to funding request and budget. Wasn't able to put a full kind of budget form in here. So just asking what your total amount is that you're requesting. And then for you to break that down between rapid rehousing and homeless prevention. So like ESG, you will have opportunity to submit budget modifications. Even if this changed between application and when the award comes, everybody that is awarded funding, I will be sending out a budget form for you to complete that has those eligible expense categories and lets you kind of put what amounts you want in those categories between rapid rehousing and homeless prevention. You're more than welcome to just do rapid rehousing. You're welcome to just do homeless prevention. You're welcome to do a mix of both. And, we don't want to get into a lot of changes while we're rolling, but, there will be opportunity to make adjustments to that. Like if you get into this and you're saying, hey, we're having a lot more clients come to us that would qualify for homeless prevention, but we don't have any money. We didn't put any money in that line for that project type. Can we move that over? Yes, reach out to us. We'll get you a budget modification form and we can move that later on. So we want you to have a good idea of what you're doing here, but you're not going to be held to it if you need to make some changes. The documents that you'll be required to upload, your IRS determination letter, your general liability insurance, just the summary page showing the coverage, your fidelity bond insurance documentation. Those two might be the same document, so upload it twice if that's the case, if your fidelity bond is listed there on that same form. We need your most recent organizational audit uploaded. And then if you are a entitlement city ESG recipient, we need a letter of support from that local government that is funding you through that entitlement city. And I just paused there because I'm thinking I'm going to have to go in there and make sure that that's not required. If you've gotten into this or if you're working on this later today and it won't let you move on, say you receive funding from IHCDA and it won't let you move on, feel free to just upload a blank document to that one, I'll go in there and make that not required as soon as I get a chance, but that is a workaround you can use there. All right, then the last page of this application form is a digital signature saying you have the authority to submit this information on behalf of your organization. And then you date that and hit submit. And then it comes to me and lets me know that we've got your application in. And I have received a handful of them already. And so excited to see that. We'll open it up to questions. I'll hit this first one in the chat. Feel free if you have any questions, be thinking of those and feel free to pop those into the chat. So got a question about individuals being, can individuals served in this program be co-enrolled with another program contingent on them meeting the homeless and income requirements? Yes, they can. And they can be co-enrolled as an ESG recipient. If you wanted to be able to assign some of those case management dollars and provide those within HMIS, assign those to them. It can be ESG. You just can't use ESG to extend past that 4-month limit. But yes, they can be enrolled. This can be kind of an add-on. And if you have any specific questions, Brian, on what that funding source is, we want to be clear on it, reach out to me and we can discuss that further. Okay. Then we've got a question about the budget. Do we have to separate funding for homeless prevention versus rapid rehousing like ESG, or is it one big pot that can be used as the needs show up? We do need to have that separated out and a budget in place between rapid rehousing and homeless prevention. But like I said, if you need to move funds from one to the other, if you need to do it a couple times throughout the program year, that's fine. And yes, you could use the entirety of the award for homeless prevention. You could use the entirety of the award for rapid rehousing. Got a question about the letter of support and what that needs to state. That is a great question because I didn't offer any additional details there, so thank you for that. It would just need to state that you know, that it would come from that local government office, and it would just state that, you know, this organization receives ESG entitlement funds from our office, and they have our support to request fund these TANF short-term rapid rehousing and homeless prevention funds. Doesn't really have to go into a lot of detail. You know, the purpose of that is, you know, we know how you, if you're funded by IHCDA, we know how you're performing with us. If you're funded by an entitlement city, we really don't know. And so we're not trying to be punitive, but we just want to know if somebody's organization's really struggling right now, and, you know, just lost a staff member that oversaw, you know, this particular thing, you know, are there concerns from that entitlement city? Do they give you a glowing recommendation? Just say, hey, yeah, fund them. They will get this funding out and get people housed. So it's just kind of them, that entitlement city, giving their stamp of approval on your application. Okay, we've got a question on quarterly reports. And so actually for you for the recipients, it'll technically be that a monthly report. And let me get back to that. I don't think I had a lot of details on that slide, but hopefully I'm not giving anybody motion sickness here. Okay, so once we get into making the award, you know, we'll have HMIS in on our webinar to go over this in a little more detail. But it's really the same information you would put in for an ESG client. We need an identifier, the date, in any like the typical demographics that you'd put in for any other client going into HMIS. And I'll be sure that I have a list of those that we expect. I don't have that handy or right off the top of my head. Any other questions? Well, if any other questions do come to mind, oh, I've got a hand raised. Sierra, if you want to, maybe let me see if maybe I can. So I think yay, there you are.
Sorry, it wouldn't let me type in the chat box. I was just wondering, is there any penalties if we get close to the end of the award and we haven't spent all the money?
I mean, I don't foresee any penalties. I don't see us really having the time to get into reallocations of the funds. I think it's really just the funds just don't get spent and stay with FSSA, which we don't want to happen. If we were to get future rounds of TANF, I could see us looking at spend. I will be looking at ESG spend as I go through the applications for this, just because we do want to see all the funding spent. So I could see if there's another round of funding, TANF funding next year, we look at your TANF spend. Did you spend 90% of what you're awarded? Well, maybe we lower that next award down to that amount, something like that. But I don't anticipate anything beyond that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. Okay, got another question on so on homeless prevention. Okay, so your homeless prevention clients would need to meet category 2 of HUD's rule, or HUD's homeless definition. So they would need to be imminently at risk of losing their nighttime residence. They do not need to come through CE, just because typically the clients that are served with homeless prevention aren't, that's just not a system that they're going to come through. That's mostly going to be people that are homeless, literally homeless. So you would just need to make sure that the folks meet this definition, that they qualify on the TANF side of the rules, and then yeah, you can just award or provide that homeless prevention assistance, and you don't have to do rapid rehousing along with it. Question on if this is going to be renewable. So the attitude with my superiors that kind of won this award from FSSA is that, yeah, if we can knock this out of the park and get these funds spent and show that we're really doing a good job getting folks housed, yeah, we do feel that there will be future rounds of this. We just have to show that we're putting it to work. And that is our hope, is that this becomes an annual award. Any other questions? And if you aren't able to type in chat, just do like Sierra did and raise your hand, and I'll be able to unmute you. All right, I'm going to get my contact info back on the screen. I know you all probably already have that. But any questions that come up, be sure to reach out to me. through email is probably the best, and I'll get back to you with any answers that I have. And be sure May 20th before 5, you get that application in. And looking forward to hopefully working with all of you and helping to get our families housed and keep them housed. So thank you all for attending, and I'll be in touch with the slides and the recording if that doesn't go out automatically. Thank you all.